Good evening. Welcome to another episode of Cavanaugh's Corner. I'm Andrew Cavanaugh. Thank you very much for coming back to us here on the channel. Today starts another series of mine where I like to go back and review classic TV shows. I don't want to say shows that are forgotten because most of these are remembered by most people. I just like to talk about shows that I've enjoyed and that have had a genuine effect on me in the past. And definitely one of those shows is a show from the mid to late 1980s, and it's called Moonlighting. And this was a somewhat quasi-detective show starring Cybill, Shepard, and Bruce Willis. And this show was actually originally created by Glenn Gordon Caron. I think that's how I pronounce his name. Glenn was originally the creator of another detective show with a man and a woman. Again, shares a lot of similarities, called Remington Steele, which starred Stephanie Zimbalist and the very new to the game Pierce Brosnan, who now we know as, of course, James Bond. But that was kind of his first foray into pretty much anything. And ironically, this show starred another actor who is also very huge now, and it started his path, and that actor is Bruce Willis. And this show was basically made with Cybill Shepard in mind as the character of Maddie. And Maddie is basically a I want to say model. She's kind of a fashionista. And her modeling agent basically left her completely broke. And so she begins a private detective firm with the help of Bruce Willis, who claims to be a private eye, but he's actually kind of a crook. But he is a very good private eye because he knows how crooks think. So these two kind of butt heads all the time, and they join forces to make Blue Moon Detective Agency, which becomes the basis of most of their adventures together. Now, Moonlighting, which I actually have right here, this is the DVD of it. This is Season 1 and 2. Today I'm actually going to be talking about Seasons 1 and 2 of Moonlighting. I'm talking about 2 seasons today. Normally I'll do a season, an episode, but I'm talking about 2 seasons today because the first season is only, I think, 5 or 6 episodes. And honestly, most of them are kind of forgettable, except for the pilot. I'm going to be talking about the pilot in a minute. But right from the start, I think something that needs to be said is, right from the pilot episode, Bruce Willis and Cybill Shepard have a wonderful chemistry together. And it's almost like a magical type chemistry. Their back and forth is so fantastic, and you do have Glenn Gordon Caron to thank for that. The way he wrote the pilot is more like a movie than it is a pilot. It is a great example of how you write fast television. Some parts of it are a little slow, I have to say. What I mean by fast television is the dialogue is never something that drags down the episode. The dialogue is always there to add some sort of joke or to carry some sort of plot line along. It never drags the show down. I think the actual plot of the pilot is what actually slows the show down more than anything. However, the pilot does kind of set the standard for the rest of the show. What that means is there's some sort of mystery that happens. Cybill Shepard and Bruce Willis kind of join forces. We learn a little bit about their backstory. And then, you know, they try to solve the mystery, which they do. And, of course, it ends in some sort of zany fashion. Now, in the pilot, the zaniness of the ending is, it's understandable because of the situation they find themselves in. Again, I'm not going to ruin that pilot because you really should see it. It's a great, great first episode of a show. But the ending is somewhat believable, as crazy as it is. The other thing I have to talk about is the next couple episodes of the first season are fairly procedural-like, and I don't think the show really gets its kind of groove until the second season. I think that's when the show starts to really hit its stride, and that's when you start to see more comedy leak into the episodes. There's still some funny lines here and there, and I think the chemistry between Bruce Willis and Cybill Shepard never really goes away, but you really get a better idea of what the show becomes about in that second season, because there's a lot of breaking the fourth wall that happens once the second season starts going. And there's a lot of it. And I mean, like, the openings, the end of the episodes, there's a lot of winking at the audience. There's even some lines that you honestly couldn't get away with on most TV shows that they get away with on this show. And I think that's one thing that kind of kept me coming back to it, was the fact that it was really funny. And I think most of all, during that second season, the show begins to not take itself seriously. And it shows, like, it really shows that the show is no longer taking itself seriously, and it's really there to just give you, the viewer, give you a good time. That's pretty much all it's there for. And I like that. I like a show that doesn't try to be more than what it is. They never try to push some sort of social message. They never try to, they never try to do anything more than be a funny, non-serious detective show, and I really, really like that. I like when TV shows do that. I like when shows know their boundaries, and I like when a show can just be out and out ridiculous and hilarious, but still play it with a straight face, and I like that. That's something this show does very well. I think, the other thing that's great to say about the second season of Moonlighting is Bruce and Cybill almost constantly bicker. And I mean, they're constantly fighting, they're yelling at each other, but it's still funny. As much as they do it, it's always funny, which is not something that you get a lot on TV shows. Most times when you get a show where the two main leads bicker a lot, it becomes pretty old. But you can always tell with Bruce and Cybill that there's something underneath. I think David, which is Bruce Willis's character, and Maddie, which is Cybill Shepard's character, pardon me, you can tell that they care for each other somewhere in there. Even though they've never really come out and say it, you can see it. It's in their eyes almost that they do care for each other. And as the show goes on in that second season, you do get a sense that, they're going to fall in love at some point. But the whole purpose of the show is, will they or won't they? And I think that is great, that it's an unsaid thing throughout the whole show, that it's kind of a, it's up in the air whether or not they're going to get together. And they come real close a few times, but they're always shot down for one reason or another. And it's kind of fun to watch that happen. I think the other thing that's interesting about this the first two seasons is I think the theme of the show, the overall theme of the show is pretty much zany mystery. That's it. It never really delves into romance, and when it does, they're joking about it, which I think is great. It's mystery comedy, which I think is a great combination. Later on in the show, they start to change things up, and when I get to those seasons, I'll talk about that. But for now, it's a really, really funny show. I think the first two seasons are fantastic. Even though the first season is pretty much forgettable except for the pilot, the second season has a lot of great funny moments. And actually, the last episode of the second season actually has a guest starring role with Whoopi Goldberg. And that episode is really out there, and you're going to see more out there episodes when we get into the third season. I'll talk about that when we get to them. But the episode is called Camille, and Camille actually plays out with like title cards in front of every scene, and it kind of feels like an early episode of Frasier, but the way the episode plays out, it's kind of a divisive episode. I've talked to some people that really like the episode and some people that don't. I really like the episode. I think it's a blast. And actually, at the end of the episode, Bruce Willis and Cybill Shepard leave the ABC set, and their last scene together takes place outside of the studio. And it's really, really wild that they did that, because, again, this is another show where, during the time period, a lot of shows didn't do that. And it was very much out of the norm. And I actually have the episode list here. I just want to think of any other episode that was really wild like that. There's an episode actually called "'Twas the Episode Before Christmas," and again, it's just a pretty much out-and-out Christmas episode. But again, at the end of it, the whole cast and crew assembled to like literally tell the audience Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and all that. And they are literally on like the outskirts of the set, and you get to see the construction of the set and stuff. I really love that stuff, and I think the way that they did that in the first, the first couple seasons is really wonderful. I love seeing that, and I think it adds another character to the show that kept people coming back to see. I think it's great. Overall, if I had to rate this season, I'd probably say that the first season is like a solid like 3 out of 5, and the second season is a 4 out of 5. So 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5. I think they're great seasons of television. I think they're very funny, and they are definitely entertaining. Next week, I'm going to be talking about the 3rd season of Moonlighting, which is hands down the best season of the show. I can't wait to tell you more about it, but we'll see you then. Bye-bye.